I'll run it by you guys just to see.
Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Kurt Knutson, known on TV as a cyber guy. If you live in LA, you might have seen me on KTLA. Now I'm based out of New York and enjoying a weekly commute on American or JetBlue to New York, but still enjoying the weather in LA. You get the best of both coasts. A lot of our panelists are from both coasts as well. Top-notch group here. Actually, every time I do this, the quality of who is connected and what they're accomplishing continues to rise again and again. And I think we've got some outstanding contributions from these folks to share. Our focus really is about how this business is transforming. And when we say the business, we're talking about Hollywood. We're talking about the digital side of Hollywood, entertainment, and as it relates to, well, TV and sports and events, including music. And that's what our panelists really specializes in. They've got some of the people that are behind the hardware technology, some of the people behind content generation, some that are curating places for virtual reality and 360 video to hang out, and all of them with their feet in the water first and having a lot to say. And there's Jackson, who never misses a good. You know you're doing well if Jackson walks in, because he doesn't go to the bad seminars. He goes to the good panel discussions. So welcome, and thanks for coming. And I see that Victor has joined us. And Victor, I got to say, hats off to you. So Victor is the guy who runs Digital Hollywood. I've watched him grow this from a teeny tiny thing to now this just racing train that is on both coasts. Really, just I think he's what do you call it when you go? He went over the tipping point without any doubt. So it's really a great thing you've accomplished. Want to dig in and introduce our panelists to you, and I'll start. I did a little number order here and see if I can recollect it, because we've got Ted, who's from Fox Sports, who's to my left, and Ted, really amazing. Ted Kenny is the current director of field and technical operations for Fox Sports. He's one of those guys that really got into 3D way back when we were watching black and white TV and there was no YouTube. He's with that. But he's now focused on a lot of the virtual reality and 360 stuff that you're doing in sports. Tell us what you're up to.
Well, currently I moved from 3Reality Technica over to Fox Sports after spending 8 years with 3Reality, and in this was just as VR was coming about, so I took a job. I handle my normal day job is I handle the NFL during the year, but other than that, I do anything that's technical, new technology, and technical operations. So they stuck me with VR since my 3D background, and it's actually proved very useful for me, because if you've been in the 3D space, you're seeing some of the same things come about as well as some new things. But ultimately, we've been testing for the past year. The U.S. Open last year. We're going to shoot the U.S. Open this year. I just got back from Talladega 2 days ago, where we shot with a company doing some testing. And there's a lot of new companies. So we have our hands full right now, just testing everything we can get our hands on and seeing what the viewers experience, what they're going to like the most.
Awesome. And then Chris, is it Tomes or Thoms? Tomes. Yep. Say it again?
Tomes.
Yep. I've known him since, the Producers Guild has a new media part to it, and I've always kept my eye on it, and he's done some innovative stuff when he was running that. I don't think you're still chairing it, but you've done a lot of great stuff with it. But your real job is VP Digital Media Studios, Disney ABC TV Group, big long title, Vice President of Digital Media Studios. You're responsible for what?
So our team produces, effectively it's non-traditional programming, entertainment for the Disney ABC Television Group. And that can be everything from one-off videos to digital series like webisodes, if you want to call them that, to behind-the-scenes integrations. So a whole slew of things that aren't in the traditional pipe.
We're happy you're here, because you know what people are buying in that sphere. You know what people are producing, and you know what's getting traction. And then to his left is a guy who really, as Al Gore long ago said, I created the internet, and we're all like, yeah, right. This guy actually might be the founder of VR, and this is Dr. Sankar, and it's Jay Aram, and he likes to go by either Jay or Dr. Jay, and he's from Washington, and he has a company that is doing innovative stuff. Not only was he a professor at Washington State University, he also, while there, he's out of town, and he's a huge Seahawks fan. And he's like, oh, damn it, I can't see the game. Why don't I create a technology where I can go to an event and act like I'm in a stadium, pick my seat, and I won't miss my Seahawks game. And that was the kernel that led to he and his wife, who worked together, and that's a whole other trek we could do here, how they created his company, which is called, is it Voke?
Vogue.
Voke, because I'm thinking of the new poke shop that opened up around the corner in New York. All right, so it's V-O-K-E, it's Voke, and it's VokeVR.com. And you have this pedigree that is extraordinary. Talk to us a little bit about the foundation of your work, and then what you're doing today that is just riveting that we want to know.
So do I have 50 minutes?
You are you would take up actually the entire day if you actually answered that question. So as best as you can put it into a
I was a
nutshell.
professor for 23 plus years, so when I start talking, I talk for 50 minutes. People fall asleep. I'm just used to that. But in short, started virtual reality by accident. Back in '93, I was moving from Virginia Tech to Washington State as a professor, and I turned on a job at Ford, and they said, "Oh, are you going to Washington State to do virtual reality work?" And I was like, "No, that's University of Washington has a virtual reality lab, not Washington State." But set me thinking. A year later, I had a full-blown virtual reality lab that I was using. So that's how I got into that. So life happens. And without that mistake by the guy from Ford who made that phone call to me, I would have never been in virtual reality. But over the years, we focused on a lot of applications of virtual reality. When through the first phase of virtual reality came down, rose with the 3D TVs, the 3D TV stuff, and now virtual reality is again come back, and I'm glad we stuck with it. And as life would have it, Seahawks fan, started this whole live VR thing because I was missing a Seahawks game, and where's my office now? Right across the 49ers stadium. So that's what happens.
That's awesome. Thank you. And then to his left is the SVP of Innovation from Time Inc., Stephen Haft.
No.
And
Nope.
no?
No, unless I got
Oh,
much
sorry, I
younger
skipped
and much
Matt.
better
My
looking.
apologies. Jump to Matt, who has a curating company. He's a co-founder of called Little Star. Just about anybody here at the conference knows exactly what Little Star is, and by the way, without the E. And they are curating a place for VR to be at, and also they're curating methods to bring it to market on multiple platforms. And they're doing a lot of stuff I don't even know about because it's happening so very quickly. Matt, give us a little backgrounder.
Yeah, so Little Star is building a 360 video and virtual reality distribution platform. So if you go to the web, you can watch the videos with arrow keys or mouse. We have mobile apps for Android and iOS that have Google Cardboard support built in. So if you're sitting there, download the app, check it out. We're working with premium brands and networks like ABC, Fox, Nat Geo, Discovery, anybody that's creating premium VR 360 experiences and looking for a way to get it out to the masses and consumers. We're looking to have the widest distribution across all platforms, major HMDs. If you have the new Apple TV, you can download our app there, Gear VR. We just submitted our Rift app today, so we're told in the next few days that'll be going live. We're a launch partner for PlayStation as well, so that device PSVR that's coming out in October will be a partner at launch there. So anyone that's creating premium VR experiences and looking to get them out there, that's what we're focused on, the distribution of it all.
And we'll see a little bit of his work in just a second. Stephen Haft, who I'd mentioned earlier, actually his email to me was just like, damn, I'm glad he's on this panel. He said, I question what it's going to take for VR to be a medium and not a promotional device. Stephen is SVP Innovation at Time Inc., as I talked about, and he's got a big job. And tell us a little bit about what you do, aside from having worked for the last two mayor's offices in New York City, and is also a member of the bar for the U.S. Supreme Court. This guy may fly aircraft and spaceships. I'm not sure, Stephen.
Time was the print partner in the company Time Warner. We spun off 2 years ago as a 95% print-driven revenue business. We now have several years as a new management in which to extend our reach into every other form of media where we think we have a license to play, and I'm part of the strategy making to do that.
And a sensible guy who I think has seen a lot in this industry and how it relates from that perspective of coming from a traditional media content company that has evolved and evolved and evolved, And now I think you'll have a lot to say for us here. And then Marcy to our left, Marcy Jastrow, is that how you pronounce it? Is, say it?
Jastrow.
Jastrow. She's with Technicolor, and she is overseeing all their initiatives for VR and AR at Technicolor. And I know you worked on the Martian VR experience as well, which is a huge hit.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your background, if you could snag a microphone, if Stephen's nice enough to share.
Sure. So I've been in post-production now for about 20 years. I've worked in and around a lot of the post-production facilities in Los Angeles. I tend to find the hardest projects to work on, so worked on a lot of 3D, worked on Avatar, went from Avatar to working on Birdman and Revenant and a lot of different features in between. I oversee sales for Technicolor Production Services, which encompasses theatrical broadcast, both in picture and sound. But in addition to that, our new initiative is VR and AR, and I'm head of business development for that. It's been very interesting. It's really interesting taking a company like Technicolor, which on my first day was telling the sales team that we were closing the lab, which was 5 years ago, and taking it into a company that is now focused on big visual effects shows, big brands, big advertising, and episodics and theatrical.
Awesome, thank you. That's your panel. Big round of applause for them. Looking forward to sharing this. And then it was really cool that Matt's company at Little Star and also Chris over at Disney ABC just worked on a project that came out, which was Dancing with the Stars 360. I want to play a little of this as maybe you guys just want to bounce off of one another, starting with Chris, as to what is this experience, why you built it, and why is it meaningful in terms of transforming entertainment. And let's do it. So how long is this? A minute 15?
Yeah.
All right, and this is 360, so I can drive it around?
Use the arrow keys. Use the arrow keys. The arrow keys?
Right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get the volume first.
So this, along with a lot of the other VR projects that we've done over the last few months, the goal is to engage the audience. And this was actually produced by our entertainment marketing group. There's a lot of us across the company that are in regular communication, which is kind of a new thing to reach all the way across the company and really talk to a variety of different groups on a regular basis, but something like this requires that. And what you're seeing is a lot of discussions between the show and the entertainment marketing team to talk about, well, you're going to have people spinning around a camera, how do you block it, what do you do? Dancing with the Stars is known for, especially over the last few years, really pushing technologically and doing things like All Access, which is a live stream after the show. So this is a natural extension of that kind of thinking. And what's important is that the showrunners are involved. They're really trying to think about what's the point of view. It's not just, well, let's do a cool stunt, although it's totally a cool stunt. But it's really well placed, and they actually choreographed that. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of time and investment from the show, and that's important. Because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're serving up something that is part of that show. It can't just be something that's off to the side. And so definitely this is an example of where we're going, and then of course partnering with Little Star to get it out to people.
And explain why partner with Little Star. What's your role in that?
Yeah, so we come in and we focus solely on the distribution piece of it. So, watching it on the web is just one place where you can experience it. That same piece of content you can watch, on your mobile device with or without a cardboard. You can just move it around with gyroscope support or just, touch. Then you can also experience it in a Samsung Gear VR if you have a Gear VR for a fully immersive experience. If you have an Apple TV, you can download it there and have, a 360 viewing experience in your living room. So I think, for ABC, they want to get it out as wide as Apple TV. The first one Christmas Day, and it was there for a few weeks. So that was a big surprise to us. And then even just being out demoing that, seeing the response of people not wanting to just jump in a headset and waiting to get their chance to control the video and have more of a social viewing experience. That and then mobile first early on was important for us too. I think we were being first to market in a lot of these things. The technology isn't always perfect when we release it, but it's about getting it out there, banging on it, innovating on it. So we were first to get our mobile 360 apps out, first to get our Apple TV app out. One of the first to be in the Gear VR. So I think, just getting first to market and then curating the content, I think, has been important as well. I mean, if you hit our homepage, you'll see things from ABC, ABC News, Nat Geo, Discovery, Showtime. It's a curated experience. We have thousands of videos on Little Star, but not everything is making it to the homepage. You're seeing, the great experiences because we want the consumer to have a great experience. If you jump into the homepage and you see, a non-quality Ricoh Theta 360 video, you're going to get sick and probably never come to our site again. So, the curation has been a big part of it as well.
Cool. Steven.
Let me ask you another version of the same question, which is, as a distribution and a sampling company for VR, which are the 3 VRs that get the most views and the most traffic? Because I think part of feeling outside it is waiting to have that one great transformative VR experience which will make you want to come back for more and more. Which are the 3 that are being most heavily trafficked?
So we recently launched this piece with a company called Wargaming, which has a game, World of Tanks. It was a history piece that shows, different history of World War II, different tanks. That piece, I think in the first few days did, over 1 million views. So that piece, performed really well. A lot of the stuff from Discovery Channel is performing well. The experiential sort of stuff, bringing you to places where you can't go to. Those are the 2 that really stick out. It's also, we've seen some things come out of meditation where, they came from YouTube stars that have large followings and, they promoted it the right way, they got it out the right way. And, it's not everybody's, favorite video, but it's one of the most popular videos on Little Star. It's a meditation video that has, known talent to it, at least to their viewers, and they promoted it the right way. So I think it's about the quality of content, the experience, as well as, how the brands and the people are promoting its ability to get your content out there. We need also, you guys have the followings on your social media and other things. So a lot of the times it's about putting together a full plan to promote the content out properly as well.
Cool. And Marcy, you're in a unique perspective. So you're with this 100-year-old company, Technicolor, and you also, not only is that business transformative, but your own career. You started as like an executive assistant in, was it sales at a studio or?
Yeah. I was an executive assistant to Fred Chandler, who's head of post-production, one of the heads at Fox. And decided that I didn't want to be in the studio system, but wanted to be more involved in the technology piece of it. So moved over to Hollywood Digital, and that was fun because it was also, right now I feel like it's level set, where everybody is learning about VR. Everybody who wants to get involved in VR can get involved because everybody's learning, and that's kind of how I started when we went from standard definition to high definition in a video production facility. So you had to really learn about all of the different processes and how do you do it in HD rather than SD. Did the same thing when I went to Modern, where I opened up the DI facility over at Modern with the help of a lot of people. But we did one of the first DIs that were ever done. And it's also not just transforming a facility, it's transforming the way the world thinks of it when they are putting budgets together. VR isn't like a DI where you could take opticals and move that number into a DI number. VR is really from the ground up. Are you going to shoot live action? Are you doing CGI? How are you doing it? Why are you doing it that way? What's the story you want to tell? Are you going to have interactivity? So what's exciting is that anybody can now get involved with a new technology and not feel like they don't have any information because it's a brand new technology to learn and how to do it properly.
And so, today, like one of the projects you worked on with the Martian Experience,
Yeah.
was that for Fox Studios? They came to you, and
Yeah.
they're
Well,
a client at that point.
So MPC Film, who is under the Technicolor banner, works on a lot of visual effects projects, and the idea was, let's look at assets across the entire value chain and see how we can repurpose them and what we can do in a VR piece. So MPC Advertising and Branding came in and talked to them about different experiences. Ridley really wanted to have a high-end director manage it, so he brought on Rob Stromberg. At that point, Technicolor MPC took a step back because Rob has his own company, VRC, but we did throw assets over from the film itself. We did help innovate with our technologists. We did talk them through certain issues they were having with interactivity, and we also managed the assets in a large way, because once you take an asset that you've built for 4K or 2K, it doesn't necessarily plop right into a game engine.
Got it. And then what have been the most notable things in your own transition now running this part of Technicolor? What is transformed the most?
I think it's excitement again. We have HDR, which is exciting. It's the beginning. We had 3D, which was the beginning of immersive. Then you go into HDR, which is definitely a little bit more immersive. And now you get into VR. And I have to tell you, I was not a believer. I went to Sundance last year, and a lot of people who are good friends of mine were like, you really have to look at this, focus, focus, focus. I put the headset on, and never, we hit start, and never went anywhere, and I was literally sitting there for 10 minutes looking at a landscape, and I'm like, this is what VR is? I wasn't convinced until I actually saw a piece called Catatonic, where it was shot by a guy named Guy, and it was about being in an insane asylum, and how those moments are, what those emotional moments are. And you're sitting in a wheelchair and you're being pushed through this insane asylum. And at that moment, it occurred to me that that's what sets VR apart, is that you can truly be immersed in a story. You can really feel like you're there. You can really be scared. And that's when I started looking at things differently, and I started actually looking at different content and realizing that if a company like Technicolor didn't get involved, we necessarily wouldn't be able to help the curation of the content. And how do you make premium content? And how do you get advertising and branding people on? How do you get feature films on board? How do you create marketing materials that are proper? How do you make the image quality a little better? I don't necessarily believe that, I think that mobile is gonna really push VR. That's what I believe, because I think that's what, gives mass adoption. So I think it's about how do we make the quality better? How is gaming intersecting with normal narrative? How are you going to be dealing with interactive within a story? Those kinds of things are what's exciting to me.
Got it. When we were warming up and getting going, I was playing this video that's up there. I don't know if you can even see it through the lighting, but it relates to, I think, maybe something Stephen and I share, which is this is the product. This is a reaction, and it's adorable. First time this woman's ever put on what looks like Google Cardboard, and she's experiencing her surroundings. It's wild.
Yeah, who says it's not social? I think it's very social.
Okay, so open your eyes.
This, by the way, is
Open your eyes.
it's a dinosaur museum. She said.
Okay, now Mom, when you turn your head, it's like you're there.
And Dr. J, you helped originate this
Dinosaurs.
Yeah, you're in
years and years ago.
Oh, okay. I thought I was an 80s kid.
Okay, now Mom, if you
I mean, it's mind-boggling when someone gets these headsets and puts them on, but my real question comes down to, when is the day coming where we don't have to put on headsets? She's having fun with them on. And so Stephen had mentioned about When is this going to become a medium instead of just a product or products related to a medium? When does it graduate and become something that's more than just entertainment? And mine is just really simple. Where are we? Do any of you guys know where you think we are in a timeline where we'll see a transformative experience, that we walk into a room and perhaps all of the walls are a display and we're no longer needing to put on goggles? Because while that's an amusing video to watch, I personally don't want to walk around with goggles on. Who wants to lead that off? Dr. J.
5 years.
You think just 5 years?
Pick a number. In 5 years, you should be able to at least see something like that in CES or somewhere.
Okay.
It shouldn't be that far out.
All right, let me tell. So I'm willing to do this. So you created this company that now allows you to go to an event,
right.
to act like you're in a stadium. So imagine going to not just a Seahawks game, but imagine, for example, I don't know, Super Bowl, or imagine an amazing concert that, like, he partnered with Ricky Martin and a number of other artists to create an experience so that you could go and be at the concert live, and then you could also go and revisit that same experience. Does it require you to wear the headsets? And tell us, what is that experience like, and how is that going to affect ticket sale? Do I have to buy a ticket to go to that? How does all that work?
So, just going back a little bit, we first released our live 360 full stereoscopic or 180 multi-cameras full stereoscopic about 4 years ago at Washington State University Stadium. They were renovating the stadium. They came to visit my company, saw what we had. We need to put this in our suites so we can, have a premium experience.
The Seahawks did, or?
No, this was Washington State University.
Oh, at the university.
The Cougars.
In their own
The
stadium.
football team wasn't doing well at all, so you have to do something different, right? To keep the fans going. Apologies to any Cougs out there. Go Cougs. I'm a Coug fan. But the interesting thing is that was 3D TVs were still the rage. So put 3D TVs in every suite, and we had 4 cameras around the field, all full stereoscopic, fully controllable, and people could switch between cameras, look around, pause, rewind, look at the game from different angles. And just like we were talking here before, people have been just waiting for a chance to get their hands on the game controller. But it's very important to know, because I came from the world of headsets 15 years before that, and then went through this whole transformation to 3D TVs. These devices and these appliances and these methods of delivery are going to keep evolving. And you cannot predict what's going to happen. Who knew that Facebook was going to buy Oculus for $2 billion and start a worldwide revolution on VR, right? VR didn't exist in anybody's vocabulary, before that flash event happened, right? So it's very important to understand what really VR is. It's about immersing a person in an experience. That's what it is. Whether it's audio, whether it's visual, whether it's 3D, whether it's 2D, whether it's 360, 180, multi-camera, it doesn't matter. Computer graphics, real event. It's about getting a person immersed in something that they want to stay there and experience and feel as if they're doing something very unique and a special experience. That's what it's all about. So going forward from go ahead. You are going to.
No,
fast forward there. So our goal was to build a platform. So we released that in 3D TVs the first year. Next year, 3D TVs are already kind of pretty much dead, and nobody wanted to wear 3D glasses and so on. But mobile devices were big, so we just said, okay, we'll just put it on mobile devices. So everybody, was told, people are told to bring their iPads and iPhones and Android phones to the stadium, and they could download. And after every play in the football game, you could switch between cameras and do this or pan, tilt, zoom. A year later, Oculus happened, and so said, okay, we're going to put headsets in every suite. Our camera system did not change, our software did not change. It's kind of the experience that's building up from 3D TVs to mobile devices to headsets to holographic devices to the experience that you're talking about. It's going to go in that direction.
It sounds amazing, and it just sounds like endless possibilities, and I don't even know if I can get my head wrapped around it. I'm just trying to, so if I'm in a stadium experience, whether it's a concert, sporting event, and now there are headsets, VR headsets there. I put them on while I'm at the event, and I've already paid my ticket to not have to put anything on. to see what am I seeing? Like, what's the experience?
Well, you have to think of two different experiences. One is the in-venue experience and one is the at-home experience. And it's really, it's funny you would ask that question because virtual reality is not about making somebody feel that they're in the stadium. That's part of it. And it's not about giving somebody in the stadium a feel for what it's like to watch TV at home. It's about giving an experience that's better than both. That's something that's beyond 2 + 2 = 5 situation. So you're in that environment. You're in a nosebleed seat. You want to get a view from, say, the coach's perspective, player's perspective, be on the field, be able to look around, look up at a virtual jumbotron and see the TV replay happening and the TV commentators talking about it, and have your social media feed. It's a whole fan experience. You're not, even if you're at the best seat in the stadium, you're not going to have all of those capabilities. But VR or immersive content allows you to blend the real and the virtual, and the augmentation of content with all of these capabilities is what's really important. Take the same thing back to home. And at home, you provide them with the stadium experience plus the TV experience plus more. And that's what it's all.
So Stephen has a question, but I just wanted to say.
I have a question, actually.
Great.
As an audience member, I'd love to know what Ted Kenny has to say about that, because if anybody in his day job has to think about what is practical, what will work in the sports space, it's Ted who's here with us.
And what is working, really, Ted?
Well, that's the big question. What is working? I mean, it's everything's new still. I mean, this is even though VR's been around for a long time, and 360 video's definitely been around for a long time. I mean, Will.i.am, and before Will.i.am shot a 360 video like 5 or 6 years ago, which was an app.
Do you remember how it seemed like, wow,
right.
And that was just 5 years ago.
Right,
Wow.
and Google doing their maps is 360. But the big thing is continue testing. I mean, we're still early on. So I mean, just if you go to NAB every year and you talk about just cameras, I mean, look at the wasteland of camera companies that came forward and said we've got the next best thing, and it's just a wasteland of what works. So things will rise. It's going to take people shooting in different styles, like how do you edit in VR? How do you tell a story in VR? Can you tell a story in VR? How do you lead the action? Do you want to lead the action? Like the case in point, the Disney, the Dancing with the Stars, that's a great piece, and we have to get people excited to shoot VR, and so I think it's going to be the younger generation that creates a language of how we see VR. Now, as far as the first question to music, to me, it's always about quality and access. So, and I come from shooting Katy Perry and One Direction and all these shows in 3D, and it was always about access. So, yes, I can put you in the front row, and if you want and you choose to be at a different camera, how about if I can put you right behind the drummer or right at the guitar player? And you can choose to look at that guitar player, or you can choose to look to your right. And that happens a lot to me in sports, where I'm watching even our Fox broadcast, and I can see a coach in the background yelling at someone, and I'm like, and then all of a sudden the camera pans and I don't see him, and I really want to know what that coach is doing. I want to know what he's yelling. I want to know what he's doing as opposed to what's on the field, because sometimes that's a very good interest point for me, or just watching the fans sometimes. But in sports, the issues we have now, I mean, this is, again, it's new. So you're talking about closer is better, just like 3D. We're talking about phones right now, and that's a great, as Marcy said, it's a great entry is to see this on phones, and it's going to get people excited about it. But in the long run, it's the things like The Martian, and being able to have VR headsets tied to your computer, so we have enough CPU power to give you CGI worlds where you can actually not just be immersed, but actually move around that world. And I think that's going to be a big push. But with sports, it's still up in the air. We're testing a lot. We like a lot of things that we're seeing, but it's early. It's still early.
It's always ironic that I forget that it sort of. I mean, do we disagree that the path of innovation tends to follow adult stuff we're not supposed to watch,
right,
followed by sports. Sports tend to lead technology innovation because they are the moneymaker in broadcast, right?
Right.
So, just curious, how many people here, show of hands, actually produces any form of video or content? Wow, good. I would say what, almost half the room. For us that do produce content, and you talked about the challenges with it, and the vast array of everybody saying, I've got the best thing, what are some breakthrough things that are transforming the industry in terms of professionally capturing an event, but not buying the cost of the stadium to get it done?
Well, I mean, some of the new things that, like, I was just in Talladega over the weekend shooting with a new company, and I'll get back to something, but it was a mix of VR and augmented reality. So you had a CGI world you lived in, but you had a window and you could just transport yourself to different places of the track. You can transport yourself to turn number 1 or turn number 4 and get that feeling as if you're on that turn where no one can actually stand. The issues right now for us is, what is VR? What is 180 VR? Is 180 stereoscopic? VR is 360, what we see on Facebook VR. It's not. It's like I said, it's a good entry point. It's 360, but ultimately, I think this whole revolution is going to grow, and then we're going to start to see separation, not only amongst technical companies, but amongst what VR is. What is that thing that we're looking for?
Show of hands from the panelists. Who has heard about VR being described as less of an experience, but more about presence? We've heard that. Is that now old? Or is that now what we're shooting for? Or is that just one aspect of something you can capture if you're in, say, dramatic storytelling?
I think it depends on what do you want the audience to care about? At the end of the day, if you're putting time into doing something, why? If Hitchcock were alive today, you can bet that he would be using VR, but he wouldn't be using it the way any of you are thinking about doing it. He would have already gone and created a language and created classical music language with VR, and then he'd be doing punk rock. Seriously, he would already be bending the rules because he was all about manipulating people's emotions. It was never about the content or the movie theater. It was about, he wanted to either scare you or make you feel claustrophobic. So I think at the end of the day, it will be up to the people writing and conducting the stories. And I think that's where we see a lot of opportunity and a lot of challenges right now, is in the writer's room. How are they, they're not penning any of this stuff. It's a lot of producers and a lot of directors out there and a lot of experimenters. But the pen hasn't actually, nothing's written out yet for VR. There's a few, and they're starting to see that at Sundance and the film festivals and Tribeca, but we're so far off. So I think at the end of the day, what's the transformative story? What's the thing that's gonna make, what's the Snow White of that was for animation? I have no idea, but it's gotta be something that's rewatchable.
Steven?
Kurt, I think we should recognize here on the panel that I suspect most of us would agree that The Martian, this piece of work, has reset the bar again. I think for all of us who are following this area, engaged with it, congratulations are due to everybody connected with The Martian, because you really have set the bar very high. I think the rest of us, to Chris's point, are sort of feeling around for that right next project that has the elements necessary to move, to Chris's point, move people. I spent 15 years making movies. I made a bunch, but I read probably 1,000 scripts in those 15 years. And I just wanted something that would make me laugh, cry, throw it down, rip it up, just do something, create an emotional reaction in me. Then I felt I had a piece that I needed to pay real attention to. And most stuff just drifted by. I think a lot of the VR stuff we're seeing now is destined to drift. And something like The Martian, I think, gets you a little more excited. You can imagine, think about great movie scenes you'd like to see done in VR. I think of Steven Spielberg's landing at D-Day with Band of Brothers, where he did an extraordinary job to create a 360 experience of what it was like to come up on that beach. If Steven had VR, I think it would have, as a great Hitchcock film might have, set the bar for an emotional and story-driven experience that would have made you want to come back for the second VR project. Can't wait to see where I'm going next. Am I going in a water with a shark? That would be kind of exciting. what I worry about is that the medium now is growing a little haphazard with everybody who has a product to sell is figuring out what is their VR, and then I'm afraid when people experience mid-level VR, they may not come back. And I think we do have a responsibility, those of us, I mean, I'm at a company younger than yours, 92 years old, that's just a print company, and our future is in omnimedia, all media. So if there's a new medium growing, this will benefit us. If VR is the way we deliver Life magazine in the future, that would be thrilling for us and a great future. But in order to be that, I feel it needs to have its future curated with, as IMAX was, thanks to Francis Thompson. It was curated with a great experience, then a greater experience, then another great experience, and it was maybe the most recent medium I can think of that grew in the way I'd like to see VR grow, with some shepherding and curation of great experiences, each one topping the next and making you want more. I don't think we're there.
And it's sort of asked earlier of you by Stephen, Matt, you're a content guy overseeing this curated space. What are people doing right that is attracting the eyeballs of the things he asked what's being watched the most? And also, we're talking about bad transformation. What really just absolutely is the stupidest thing that people thought was like the next big thing?
Well, I think early on we saw lots of panoramic photographers that were creating content, to her point. You know, it's beautiful landscapes, and that got tired really quickly. And in the last 6 months, we're starting to see, you know, more independent studios, bigger studios, all sort of, you know, either dip their toe or dive into VR. I think, you know, the workflow is getting better. Camera systems are coming out, like the Nokia Ozo or other, you know, custom DSLR rigs that are, you know, making it a bit easier to create this content. And
How much?
You know,
How much for the camera?
the Ozo, I think, is going for $60,000. But, you know, I think people are figuring out how to tell good stories still. You know, there was a really great piece that, you know, came out, Paranormal Activity, a horror piece where, you know, you're in the garage and it's a seance, and, like, you know, they're bringing the lights down, and then when they bring it back up, you know, the ghost is right in your face, and, like, you know, different things with directional audio with somebody, you know, breathing on your neck. So there's all sorts of things like that that are happening now that I think, you know, and I always get surprised when I see a piece of content. I'm like, oh wow, I never thought of doing like an overlay like that, or bringing like an insert of another video here. So people are doing interesting things there and pushing the medium forward, because to Chris's point, there is no playbook. You know, VR is, you got to go out there and try it and see what works and what doesn't. And I can tell you, you know, going down the hill on a snowboard in VR is probably going to get you sick, you know. So there's different things like that. Like, you know, I know early on people were like, you can't have fast cuts, or you can't have a lot of movement. But now people are figuring out how to have cuts, and people are figuring out how to have steady movements with RC cars or gyroscope or however they're doing it. So I mean, it's all happening now.
You know, I'll offer this up. One of the things that a lot of the storytellers at the Walt Disney that we've been talking about philosophically is, well, what's a story? Is it like the Lumiere brothers' original first film at the turn of the 20th century, where the factory workers are just going to lunch and that's all they did? Well, that's kind of equivalent to the very first VR films that you just put the camera and you go, okay, go. And, you know, a bee buzzes by and that's about it. But as things start to evolve, you start to realize that it's really more of a stage. You have a proscenium, like traditional Greek theater or like stage magic. And so I will offer this is that, you know, we've talked a lot about, well, what do you want people to look at? If they can look anywhere, what do you want them to look at? Because if you're telling a story, you're telling them a story. So it's probably not what they're looking at, but it's what they're paying attention to. So one of the things that we haven't talked about here is audio. And I think that's also a really important thing when you're walking around this courtyard. If you hear water, you know to look that direction because you hear it. So that's one of the things that we're trying to figure out as we blend storytelling with presence is, how do you get people to look where you've put the money? Because the investment needs to come back. We want people to see it more than one time. I need people to watch a show as many times as possible because, you know, it's ad supported. So if I can direct their attention and make them feel that they've got something out of it, but maybe also they missed something and they got to go back and see it again, that's some real value.
And what's the biggest challenge as the industry transforms when you're dealing with the purse holders of the money, say in a traditional entertainment environment like a studio system? What's the biggest challenge when I know it takes a lot of money and a lot of experimenting and you can't always say, all right, we're going to make X, just spend Y, and it's all going to be great? What's the story? What succeeds in a conversation that lets you pursue this and get the minds of others wrapped around what you're doing?
There's only two ways that it really will happen. One is that it's led by marketing, which is, you know, we've kind of discussed up here, is it's always a way in for new experiences because you want buzz, and it's easy to get people's attention with that. So you can get investment from the marketing teams. I think the other way is a little more challenging because you deficit finance something, you invest in it. And without any promise of a return, because there is no there's no movie theaters, there's no like, you just turn on your TV set. You know, there are a lot of distribution points like Little Star and so on and so forth, and even the YouTube 360 player, but without the promise of getting that money back, you have to invest. And that's a tough challenge. So, you know, I think that's one of the things for any of you or any big studio or anything, it's before they do that, they really you have to have a story to tell. And if you've got something good to say that people will, once they see it, they're like, oh my God, that was really compelling. And not just technically, but that was a really great story. Then they usually forgive the fact that you opened up the purse strings.
Got it.
Yeah, I agree, and I agree that that technically it's not there. And I don't think that that's going to drive it, and I think that as long as you are telling a good story and you're trying to make a statement and your viewer feels immersed into a story, number one, that is what's going to drive it. It really is. You know, my daughter has VR parties where every time a new one comes out, 10 kids are sitting in a room and they're watching VR. And I think that it has to do with really understanding Technicolor is getting involved with a lot of different types of filmmakers where we are working with them and we become invested. So when you get the company invested who's going to help put it together, you get invested in that story and you want it to get better and better and better and better. So you're willing to do a little more than you would on, let's just say, a regular feature film or trailer or commercial.
And it's the little things, too, that make a huge difference. In the Dancing with the Stars piece, what made such a big difference is that the dancers were looking at the camera. They were looking at you. And that's really, really important, and that was something that the show decided to do with the team shooting it, because it's a personal dance. Like, you're literally in the middle of the dance floor. They could have easily ignored the camera and just danced around it, and you could have been a ghost, but you would have felt odd, and it wouldn't have been as special. So there's little things like that that are part of the new language that you're only going to learn by making little tweaks here and there, but suddenly it's such a profound difference because it becomes something meaningful as opposed to, oh, I'm just observing.
We've got 10 minutes left. I want to open the room up to questions. You've got some extraordinarily talented people in front of you. I've just barely scratched the surface of their talents and what they're up to. And if you've got any questions, just raise your hand and I will seek you out and we'll ask you. We've got a question in the back.
Chris, on that last point, how many iterations, or did you go through iterations on the filming of Dancing with the Stars to do those tweaks? Did you try, what if the dancers did not interact with the camera?
For those
with the camera, back and forth, did you do iterations?
So for those watching at home right now, if you could repeat the question about
Sure. How many iterations?
iterations?
For the dancing piece, how many iterations did we do? Did we plan it from the start that way? Now, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't in those conversations. That was done by my friend and partner over at Entertainment Marketing, Bob Schifrin and his group. But I know that they did have lengthy conversations with the show production team, and so I'm sure it came up. Because we've done a lot of video. In fact, we shot some video for, I don't know if you saw it, it was Wonderful World of Disney's Disneyland 60th. And there was a sequence that we did for VR, and they did not look at the camera. And they were people dancing down Main Street. And it felt not as good as this. And so I think, and that we shared those learnings with that team. So I think that's what we're seeing is, I don't know how long they talked about it, but we're definitely sharing that information and we're making playbooks as we go. Literally saying, don't do this because that was bad. Learn not to do that. And you just have to be really honest with people about it. And that takes a team of people that have each other's backs as they're going through the process.
Cool. Let me show that, if it's okay, and you walk through it with us. This is the, I watched this earlier and I had it on, had planned to use my iPad because it's so much more profound when you're watching content and you go like that and you see it instead of use the arrows. So if my battery lasts and we'll get through it, it's caching it right now. And it's hosted at, am I at the right spot if it's Jaunt VR?
Yep.
And what I loved about this is that this is a little experience at Disney, and you feel like you're back in time, visiting the park when none of us were born, and then you suddenly get to today.
Well, it starts in black and white, and then it goes into color. You know, one of the things while this is loading up, the show production team, this was really important. We came in not in the beginning, but show production actually ran through those sequences explicitly for the VR, and they reblocked for some of the dances. And that was really important because you can't just take something that's made for linear and stick a camera there and suddenly everything's, gonna work and be great. I mean, literally down to, we had to hide the cameras by putting hats on them so that we wouldn't be distracting for the main broadcast. Really nice, but not explicitly designed for 360. You can tell. And this was one of our first, experiments, I would say. So the dancing piece of video really shows how we evolved based on what we learned. Which I think also, just because you can do it, doesn't mean that sometimes you should.
All I know is when I was running through all their material and I ran across this, I was like, oh my gosh, I've watched the entire thing. I thought I got sucked right in. I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was a miss by any chance. I don't know. For me, it was a cool experience, if not for just a little gimmick. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Your name, if you would, please. Chuck Fishman.
For these browser-based experiences, what kind of player or technology is making that happen?
All right, the question is what kind of, for browser technology, which kind of player is really making this happen? I happen to be using Chrome for this only because I just was using, what was I using earlier? Firefox, and it Firefox, I've noticed, isn't the best at putting through VR 360 content, but I'm not the one to answer the question. Matt is.
Yeah, so we have a web player that works across browsers. It's an embeddable player as well, so if you upload a video to Little Star, it generates an iframe embed that then you can grab and embed on any site. So we did this with ABC for the Oscars. They used Little Star to distribute it. We gave them the embeddable player that they put on abc.com. Yeah, it's built. It's a player that we built in-house.
I think you're getting
talk to me afterwards,
question.
and I can.
Yeah.
The core of it's open source, so I can give you access to the GitHub. Talk to me afterwards.
Any more questions? I have. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I have a question for Chris. Was the Small World experience after this, and was that incremental on top? Because that was the jump as well, right?
Yes, it was. So that was after, yeah, and that was incremental. I mean, I think we did quite a few things and continue to do quite a few things with Jaunt. We have a variety of different partners, and I think as we look to learn about what to do right, we're trying to think about, well, what's the biggest audience that we can get this in front of so that we can actually get some data. So naturally, Wonderful World, we know we're going after an audience that's going to be, it's family time. They probably have access to Wi-Fi in the home. So anyway, there's a lot of that that's going into this. If I chose a very random show to work on just because maybe that they would do it, I just don't know that if it's something that my mom is watching and I made a VR experience, she's not gonna care. So I just have to, I always think about that as like, who's the demo, and are they naturally, do they have an affinity for watching technology like this or for consuming content in a new way? And you have to be sensitive to that, because otherwise, people won't watch it, and you're gonna assume they didn't watch it for the wrong reasons.
Ted?
Well, you mentioned one thing that, and I'm not sure if they're doing it yet, but you'll see it down the road, which is not only can you be in that 360 world, but for marketing and ad sales, you can get analytics of where people are watching at any given time. So if they're looking at that billboard over there, out of that whole world, and they looked at that billboard for 5 seconds, you'll know it. So the analytics in the future for sales and marketing and advertising, that's where the money's going to come from, is us being able to go back and seeing not only how many people are watching, but where are they looking and what works.
Yeah, and we're already starting to track some of that stuff. We have heat map analytics that work for creators, so you'll be able to see an audience breakdown of where your audience is actually looking.
That's awesome.
See that, Matt?
Yeah. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
This may be a little more long run than where you're thinking right now, but are you thinking at all yet about haptics and the feeling of what you're watching and hearing in VR?
So there's a great company called Subpack. That's like a plug-and-play vest that you wear that has basically a base pack in it. It works with any HMD. So we work closely with them on the haptic side. And then, there's a bunch of directional audio stuff that we're doing with Dolby and others there. And if anybody else wants to jump in.
Yeah, VR is all about interaction, and the haptics is going to make a big comeback. We've done lots of haptics in the past. The visual, being able to turn your head around and see what you want to see, is like level 1 of VR, and you need to get up to level 10 to be completely immersed in it. Okay, so when somebody puts a camera and says, here's VR, here's 360, you're in VR, put on a headset, to me, those are the ones that you want to first run away from and say, okay, that is not VR. Okay, just putting a camera and saying, look around, okay, it gets you started, but then the storytelling, the production, especially if you're doing it live, it's just a completely different ballgame. You're competing with a TV where the story is so well told on sports, and you want people to instead put on a headset and be immersed in this for any extended period of time. You need a lot more, and haptics is at the other end. Haptics is close to 9 or 10. To me, getting to haptics, because I've seen the technologies over the years. It's a little vibrating buzzer on your fingertip 20 years ago to full robotic arms that can give you force feedback. To make it something that people can use at home, that's a long way away. I've done a lot of haptics. I'm not looking at anything to do with haptics at this stage of VR, but it's a consumer product.
We had another question? All righty. I want to thank our panelists, and I want to thank you all for being here today. Outstanding panel. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Ted Kinney, Dr. J, Marcy at the end with Technicolor, Matt, the superstar at Little Star, Stephen Haft from Time Inc. with his seasoned wisdom, Chris from ABC. If I missed anyone.